All right, so today we're going to continue on with what I introduced in class. We're going to be factoring when the lead coefficient is not 1. And this, for some of you, may be the hardest section all year. This is a very, very tricky concept that requires a lot of practice, but stick with it, and you'll not only get better at it, but you'll get faster at it, and you'll become intuitive. So first of all, the essential question: what strategies can I use to factor reverse FOIL when the lead coefficient is not 1? So let's take a look at our first example. Notice this number, it's not 1, which means when I go to reverse FOIL, I cannot just say x and x, because x times x is x squared, but I'm trying to multiply to 2x squared. So also, because I can't just put x and x, it's going to mess up my whole strategy of adding to this and multiplying to this, and I need new strategies. So please think of this kind of as its own way of factoring. It relates to the other reverse FOIL way, and you should be able to figure out how, but we are really using pretty new strategies today. So what I need to do is, instead of simply looking to two numbers that add to this and multiply to this, I need to think of the whole FOIL problem all at once. So I don't know what I should put here and here, but I do know that whatever it is needs to multiply to 2x squared. And what's the only feasible way of multiplying to 2x squared? Well, 2x times x. So I know for sure that I'm going to have a 2x here and an x here. Just note, I'm not doing anything weird like 2x squared times 1 or like 2 times x squared. Those are technically ways of multiplying to 2x squared, but I want an x in both of my terms. Okay, so I figured out that the only way to multiply to 2x squared is with a 2x and an x. Now I need to look at the 6, and I need to think to myself, okay, what are some different ways of multiplying to the 6? Because that is what I'm going to put here and here. I can think of two different ways, 1 and 6, and 3 and 2. And let's think about this. Since I'm trying to multiply to a positive 6, I either need these both to be positive or both to be negative. Let's look at the middle term to find out. Since the middle term is negative, I'm definitely going to have both of these last terms be negative. I just need to decide, is it 1 and 6 or is it 3 and 2? Also, I need to decide, do I put the 1 and 6 here, or do I switch them and put the 6 and 1 here? And this will actually make a big difference, because since I have a 2 in this term, it's going to really mess up my FOIL, and we'll see how. So let's just try a first set of numbers. Let's start with 3 and 2. I'm going to put the 3 here and the 2 here. And let's see what happens. Well, when I FOIL this out, I should get back to here. And I already know, hey, 2x times x, that's 2x squared. Check. And hey, negative 2 times negative 3, that's going to be 6. Check. Like, I picked them to be exactly that. What I need to check is, do the middle two terms combine to this middle term? So let's look at the inside terms. I have negative 3 times x. That's easy. But now, 2x times negative 2, that's negative 4x. Do these add up to negative 13? And the answer is no, they combine to negative 7x. So if I were to write this as my answer, this FOILs out to 2x squared minus 7x plus 6. That is not the correct middle term. So I need to try something else. Let's try switching the place of the 3 and the 2. And notice what happens here. Still I have 2x squared, still I have 6, but look what impact it had in the middle two terms. Now that the 2 is matched up with the x, this is negative 2x. And now that the 2x is matched up with the negative 3, 2 times negative 3 is negative 6x. And those are going to combine to negative 8x. So I still don't have the correct answer, but since I tried the 2 and 3 in both possible places, this option is totally closed. I tried them in both places and neither one works. Let's try the 1 and the 6. So I don't know where they're going to belong. Let's try putting the 6 here, and let's try putting the 1 here. Okay, so negative 6 times x, the inner, negative 6x. 2x times negative 1, the outer, negative 2x. Coincidentally, this also happens to add up to negative 8x, but I'm still not getting negative 13x. So the only other option, this had better be the right one, is if I switch the location of the 6 and the 1. So let's see, now on the outside, I didn't actually switch the location. Let's put the 6 here and the 1 here. Okay, so now on the inside I have negative 1x, and on the outsides I have negative 12x. Okay, these add to negative 13x. So this is the winning option because this whole thing foils to 2x squared minus 16x plus 6. So here's why it's tricky. I'm still picking these. I'm still thinking what multiplies to 6. All I have to do is figure out what multiplies to 2x squared, but I have many different possibilities, not only for what to put here, but for how to arrange them so that they match up properly with the 2x. That's what makes this so tricky. But this, after many trials, is my final answer. And yes, I know I just took 5 minutes to solve this problem. I could do it in my head in about a second because I've practiced this so much. And yes, I know I'm the math teacher, but what I'm trying to say is if you keep practicing this, you can do a lot of these steps in your head, okay? So let's look at a second example. All right, here, remember, I can't just go y, what adds to this, what multiplies to this. No, because of this 4 in front of the y squared, it's more complicated than that. I need to see, hey, what are some different ways of multiplying to 4y squared? And I can think of 2. I could either have y and 4y, or I could have 2y and 2y. So unlike this one where I knew for sure it was 2x and x, because that's the only option, here I have 2 options. So I can't really for sure put anything here and here yet. But let's look at the negative 3. There's only one way to multiply to negative 3, and that's 1 and 3. Now, I know that it's possible that the 1 could be negative, or maybe the 3 could be negative, but the difference between the plus and the minus is going to be a small one. So let's just choose, let's choose the negative 1 for now. And even though I don't know for sure about the signs, I know for sure that this has to be a 3 and this has to be a negative 1. There's no changing that. The only thing that might change is what I put in the first position of each binomial. Is it going to be y and 4y, or is it going to be 2y and 2y? So let's try the 2y and the 2y first, because here's the thing. Unlike when I can rearrange things, like remember in this last one when I had to rearrange the 1 and the 6, here, since these are identical, there's no rearranging. So let's just test it and see if it works. 2y times 2y, 4y squared, good. 3 times negative 1, negative 3, good. My only job is to check the middle 2 terms. So this one, 6y, this one, negative 2y, and I can see that these combine to positive 4y, which is not what I want. Now let's see why it doesn't really matter where I have the plus and the minus. What would happen if I made this a minus and this a plus? What would happen if I just switched where the plus and minus was? Well, wouldn't that make this negative, and wouldn't that make this plus? And what effect does that have when I combine them? Negative 6y plus 2y is negative 4y, which was the exact opposite of what I was combining to when the signs were switched. Remember, when there was a plus here and a minus here, I combined to 4y. These are just exact opposites. So if you ever get the exact opposite middle term, just switch the signs. All right, so let's try some different things. 2y and 2y doesn't work. Let's try the y and y and 4y. So this also multiplies to 4y squared. I'm good. In the middle, I have negative 12y, and then on the outsides, I have plus 1y. This combines to negative 11y. Clearly not working. So instead of putting the 4y there, let's move the 4y over here, and I think this is going to be the winning one. I have 4y, I have negative 3y. Yes, indeed, that combines to a positive 1y in the middle. Now I have the middle term worked out, so this is the solution. Notice, if this had been a plus and this had been a minus, I would actually be combining to negative 1y, and all I have to do is switch the signs to make it combine correctly to 1y. So this looks good because it foils back to here. I'll do one last example. If I have a negative in front, this can be very tricky. So here's the trick. Pull out a GCF of -1. Let me show you what happens. Pull out the GCF of -1. What happens if I distribute out a -1? Well, that leaves me with 4x squared, because when I divide this by -1, the negatives cancel. That makes this a -12x. That makes this a -1, or sorry, a -7. So basically all the signs simply switch. That's the effect that dividing out a -1 has. All of the signs have switched. And the reason that I like it is because I really like having this first term be positive. It's just that much harder if the first term is negative. Since this is positive, it's just going to be easier. We're going to leave the -1 outside. It's out, it's just staying there for good, and I'm going to try to reverse FOIL only what's inside. So first of all, the -7. There's only one way to multiply to that. -7 and +1. And yeah, I know maybe this is positive and this is negative, but as we discussed last time, it's not a big deal if the signs are switched. I can fix it easily in the end. Now let's look at how I multiplied to 4x squared. Just like the last one, it's either going to be 4x and x or 2x and 2x. Now let me tell you some mental tricks I have in my mind. I know that if I multiply -7 times 2, I'm going to get 14. And that's really close to 12. And I know that I'll have 2x also multiplying 1, which is a 2. And I know that 14 minus 2 is 12. Anyway, do you see how I kind of just did that in my mind? I know that 2x times 2x is 4x squared. Check. I know that -7 times 1 is 7. Check. And I knew that -7 would be combining with this 2x for -14x. And I knew that the outsides would be combining to 2x. These combine to -12x, which is almost right. Actually, it's exactly right, because in this, I wanted the -12x. See how I kind of did that in my head? Because I knew that the middle two terms and the outside terms needed to combine to get me the middle term. This is my final factoring, and I know it's a little harder because we had to distribute out a -1, but pulling out the GCF of -1 gives you a positive here, which can help you out. All right, so this is my winning answer because this foils back to this, and then if I distribute in the -1, this distributes back to this. All right, summary. It's no longer good enough to just find what terms multiply to the last term and then add to the middle term because I have a lead coefficient other than 1. So now I have to try different combinations of terms that multiply to the first term and multiply to the last term, and then make sure the whole problem foils to the middle term. And you just saw exhaustive examples of that. So hopefully you got the point. But this section takes practice. We will practice a ton tomorrow. Thanks for watching.